Yeah, so firstly, huge congratulations on your latest release that came out last week. How does it feel to have it out there?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, by the way. It's kind of weird every time because the song was written like, I don't know, at least a few months ago. By the time it comes out, I've kind of forgotten the way that it sounds and, um, all those things. And I try and make an effort not to listen once songs are done because have a bit of a strange relationship with perfectionism and wanting to change things after the fact. So for me, the easiest thing is to just not touch it. So yeah, when it came out, I listened to the song and I was pleasantly surprised that I liked it and I didn't want to change anything. Um, yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, that's good. And with the whole perfectionism, like, how do you know when a song is ready to just be let go and it's like, no, I'm not going to work on this anymore. It's ready.
Yeah, it's really hard to know. I think there has to be somewhere along the way where I have like a bit of a gut or a feeling in my body, something that's a bit more visceral rather than like, rational, where I feel like, oh wow, this feels like something that resonates with me, and then it's kind of like, okay, this feels done. I guess that's the moment. And I've definitely like been guilty of like redoing things and then redoing things and then going back to one prior because it just had a better feeling or whatever. It's a weird thing. I think also like just having a deadline can help, saying when things are done,
Hmm.
putting the deadlines on yourself, like even if it's just like, okay, I need to finish this in 2 weeks and that's all there is to it, for those reasons, because yeah, there kind of is no such thing as done. It's just your perspective at that moment in time, I think.
Yeah, I guess that's why people later on do like remixes and like add-ons too, because I guess the longer it's been out there and obviously the more traction it gets, people coming back and revisit that same work as well.
Yeah, and I've heard of like people like Kanye re-uploading song like different mixes of songs and like to Spotify, just substituting it.
Yeah.
Um, it's a whole nother, like that's kind of Pandora's box to me because there's definitely times in the past where I've been like, oh, I wish I could have mixed this slightly differently or whatever. But yeah, I think it now I'm of the opinion that it's important just to kind of say this was this moment in time. Yes, I'd probably do it differently if we did it again, but would that be better or worse? I'm not sure. But it wouldn't represent what we were like at that moment. So I kind of just try and have the discipline to be like, cool, it's done, it's out in the world. It's
Yeah.
it's not that big a deal. It's just a song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. And it's out there in the world. And it seems like the reaction's been really good. I've seen it's been added to some really cool like Spotify playlists, people listening to it. How's the reaction been like so far?
Yeah, great, really good. Like, I think it's yeah, it's always hard, like kind of hard to gauge on the other side, but it seems like people really like it. The whole thing was a strange process. It was a song that we wrote with Fields. His name's James, who's in Melbourne, and it was the first time we'd ever written together, and it all just happened really quickly, and like all the vocals and pretty much everything that we put down was just like the first pass, um, and we kind of thought like it was a work in progress, and we'd come back to it, and then yeah, we did. I mean, we did continue working on it when I got back to Perth, but the majority of it was there from those initial moments. And I think that this is my theory now. I think that freshness might attribute to why, if people like it, like if they can feel some spontaneity and some genuine creativity that's happening there, like we didn't have the opportunity to overthink this one. Um, so yeah, maybe it has a feeling of just like yeah, being free or something like that.
Yeah, and I guess people also like it because it's relatable. So the story, the song follows the story of a situation that has come to an end. And I guess like people go through that, whether it's relationships, school, careers, like, things do come to an end. And I guess was there something in particular for you that inspired this song?
Yeah, so I'll try and explain without going too much into other people's personal lives. Let me just think. Yeah, so like James, the other person I wrote with, who's Fields, he and his girlfriend had just broken up like the day before or something like that, and the writing session was actually meant to be with him and his girlfriend. So the whole thing was had this precedent of being like, it was a bit of a weird kind of vibe. Like not because of James or anything, but just we are both like, oh, like should we do the session or not? Um, and yeah, so I think from James's point of view, it was very much about the breakup with his girlfriend, and Carmen's the other half of the Money War, who's also my wife. Um, Obviously, being married and being in a band has its challenges, and um, there's a bit of that in there as well. So James and I could kind of um, relate on that issue, and that was the first thing we talked about when we got together, and then that song kind of emerged. So it is relationship based, but from two different people's perspective.
Yeah, and I like that those two different perspectives come together into the one song as well.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I guess like I really love the production side of it. So I'd love to know more about like your creative process with him when it came to the production as well.
Yeah, so James played a lot of it. Like at least like the initial stuff. He was kind of like um, running the computer, and I was kind of like, maybe throwing out melodies and stuff like that. Um, and it started with this particular song started with like some like drum samples, and then I think we had some chords, and then just kind of laid it up from there. I think like the kind of bands we're referencing sound like live bands, and it's kind of funny that we built it in a very not organic way. Like we laid everything up a lot. Um, like there was bands like like the band called The Band, and there's newer bands like Whitney that are kind of referencing a lot of that like that feel. Um, but yeah, it's then it was like we kind of sent it back and forth because James is in Melbourne, I was in Perth, and just added bits and pieces, and then yeah, I kind of had an idea to add like a female vocal in the second verse. That wasn't there initially, and then so Carmen, I sent the song to Carmen, and she was like really liked it, and then she was like, I've got an idea like what the perspective should be from the female point of view. Um, Straight away. So it was such a cool process. It was just one of those ones that was like it just built and flowed so organically, um, which is not always the case. Actually, I find that quite rare. So it was enjoyable that it was easy.
Yeah. And I love that because when you listen to it, it sounds like it's come together really naturally too. Because when I first listened to it, I was vibing along. I'm like, this actually sounds really sick. Like, I love it. It's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really glad that it feels just like like does it feel kind of like I hate saying effortless because but like to me it kind of feels like it's not too thought out, and I think that's because the process happens so quickly, and yeah,
Yeah. To me, it just sounds natural because you hear some other songs and you listen to the production, it sounds like there's just random bits chucked everywhere. But when you listen to this particular release, it not so much effortless, but it sounds like strategically planned. It's like, this was natural and and it worked out for the better, if that makes sense
cool.
what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I do know what you mean. It was very like song focused, like the chords and melody and lyrics. We worked like that was what we had, and then we kind of built it up from there. So I think the production, once we had like the vibe, everything else was kind of secondary to the song. Like it was always all serving the song. I think we weren't leaning too hard on lots of bells and whistles in it to try and get it the line because we knew we had like a strong melody and like a lyrical idea and stuff like that.
Yeah, and sometimes simple is best too, because then it also showcases the lyrics and also what the song's about as well. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I love simple production. You know, just there's so many examples of songs that kind of were ruined, like great songs that were ruined from being overproduced. So I'm always wary of that.
Yes, I agree. There's been songs where the lyrics are really strong, but then it takes away the message when there's just like over the top production or production that just doesn't
Yeah,
fit the melody or the mood of the song, the lyrics.
that's right. Yeah, I feel like the 80s was really guilty for that because there was like everyone was obsessed with big drums and lots of reverb, and if you have this intimate feeling melody and lyric and chord progression and harmony, um, I like for me Bruce Springsteen was like that at first. Like I couldn't get into Bruce because I feel like when you're younger, maybe you hear the initial, or I did. I heard the surface level of what songs were, like the sound and and it felt like an era that felt like my mum's time or something. That wasn't cool, And once I dug deeper, beyond the production level, it was like Bruce Springsteen songs are incredible, and obviously now I love Bruce Springsteen, but yeah, that was an example of where I felt like the production was a barrier for me, and I couldn't get into the songs because of the 80s drums, for example.
Yeah, well, I think you've nailed it. I think with this particular release as well, it's a perfect balance, and I feel like you've nailed the production while also highlighting what the song's about and the vocals and everything else that goes on in a song as well.
Thanks.
That's all right. And I'd love to hear more about like the money war as well. So for anyone that like doesn't know you and is just coming across your music now, how would you describe like your project and what your music's all about?
Yeah, so the Money War is my wife Carmen and I project. We launched it in like shit, it was a little while ago now, I think 2016. And it's really just it was a project for us to put out songs that we were writing. We were all both sorry, we're both playing in bands at the time, different bands at the time, and I produce for other people and write for other people as well. Um, so it's kind of just a project for us to do whatever we want and like write songs that we like. We kind of are very aware that like our style of music might not be in step with what's going on at any given time, but like doesn't really matter to us. Um, it's an important outlet to us, and it's I'd say our songs are like always very like traditional, like in the sense that we're focusing on like the chords and lyrics and melodies and stuff, and then yeah, the production's kind of secondary. But I guess like to try and talk about like references and other parallels that other people have drawn. Like, I guess there's a lot of like eras from the past which people reference, like the 60s and 70s, which I think naturally comes through because a lot of our favorite music's from the so-called golden era. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love your name as well. So tell me more about like why you chose to name the Money War for this project.
Because we couldn't find any other names. Band names are really hard. It's easy writing songs, but bloody hell, band names. Uh, but
Especially
yeah, I mean, we
original ones, because I mean, with how many bands are out there, every time you've got an idea, it might possibly already be taken.
like, there's only so many words that exist, so unless you're putting numbers and hyphens and that in your name. But yeah, the money war was, I guess, like I guess it's like there's an ethos maybe in our music or in the spirit that we would like to have that's not about materialism, and that was kind of like the money war was like the way that we felt about art. Like it was hard to be okay with money and make art, and the life is kind of like just like so many of our decisions and people's decisions generally are based around money. So it kind of felt like an appropriate, but like kind of also at the same time like a blank canvas. Like the money was kind of broad, um, you know. Um, but yeah, most mainly the reason was that band names I had to come up with, and that one seemed okay, so we
Yeah,
stuck with that.
I like it. It's unique and I guess it flows. And I guess, it can be a war at times. I mean, money causes a lot of like the problems that people go through in this world at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, you said it really well. I should remember that.
That's all right. And I guess yes, as you said, your music partner is also your romantic partner. How do you go with like finding that balance when it comes to like personal and like music stuff? Do you find your ideas clash a bit, or does it work better because you know each other on a personal level?
um, a bit of both. Like now, having some experience writing with other people, I can kind of see the pros and cons of writing with someone that you know really well. I think the thing with us is so we also have kids, and we have to be sure that like our personal relationship comes first before the band. Maybe sometimes there's been some opportunities missed um, because of that, but overall, it's what we need to do to kind of like manage both worlds. Um, but creatively good, I think, because Carmen, the way that she approaches things is a little different to me. Like she's just like it's either working or it's not, or like it comes across well or it doesn't, or you could clear this part up, or like she's very good at like saying things really directly, whereas I might like spend ages on something that doesn't really change the outcome that much. So I feel like our skills are kind of opposite and balanced in some ways. Um, but yeah, there's definitely the other part, I guess, that's great is like traveling together, being on tour is easy. Like, we like hanging out, and it's we've been able to do some cool stuff like whilst traveling with the band, like um, do some like kind of more touristy holiday stuff that we want to do on a personal level, and use the band as an excuse to do that, which has been great. But yeah, then there are some challenges with um, just like being cautious about like you've got to go home and be with this person and have a family with this person, so you can't, or you sometimes got to like temper some of your opinions and stuff like that. But yeah, it's cool overall. Like it's a really cool thing, and I think it's a way of us kind of it's like a conversation that we have that's different to just a general conversation. It's like our, I don't know, subconscious dealing with issues that we have, and then it's like, oh, the song comes out and you don't really comes to you and you don't really know what it's about, and then you talk about it and it's like, oh, we should probably have a conversation with words about this issue that I didn't know was an issue. Does that make sense?
It does. 'Cause I guess with music too, like even people that write that aren't working with their romantic partner, it's still like, things come up in music that you didn't know you're experiencing until it's actually unintentionally ended up in a song, or the lyrics are there and you're like, hey, what is this actually about? What am I feeling to write this?
That's it. I guess it's the same as like journaling or something, or um, any kind of creative flow. Like sometimes you're just doing stuff and it's like, oh, yeah, this has been simmering down there, but been unacknowledged, and here it is, and now we've got to talk about it. So it's kind of like, can be kind of like therapy in a way, but it can also be quite confronting and like it can be limiting because you're like, do we really need to go there? Do we really want to go there for the harmony in the short term? Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it can be challenging, but it also sounds like you both understand your boundaries and have a good grasp on it. And obviously, like the final product, from what I've listened to, it's great. So it sounds like you can work really great and still have that personal connection outside of that as well, which is great.
Oh, thanks so much.
All right, no worries. And I guess like moving forward, like what's your end goal for the Money War? Like what do you guys hope to achieve? What mark do you hope to like leave in the music industry?
Um, yeah, I think, yeah, like our ambitions are not huge as far as like career wise. To be honest, um, it's really just about making better songs and continuing to have that outlet and keep that kind of, like, it sounds cliche, but kind of pure, and just like we both, like, I write for other people and produce other bands, and that's kind of the place where I feel like I have a bit more ambition in the game or something. But the Money Wars, like, it just kind of happens when it feels good, and we kind of want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we did. I mean, we've been really fortunate to do like a fair bit of travel with the band and like touring nationally and overseas, and um, yeah, like I guess the ambition is to get better as artists, really.
Yeah, I guess just have fun with it and just see where it goes, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, we like doing it, so it's kind of that's the motto.
Yeah, and I'm interested too because you said that you do some work for some other bands and that too.
Mm.
How do you find that? Do you find like it's easier to write for other people or to write for the money wall? How do you stand when it comes to like working for others versus your own project?
I think, yeah, I feel like it's like a different role maybe. Like when I'm writing with other people, they're the artist, so they're the person that's like living in this like la la land trying to pluck an idea from the universe, and I'm the person that's like trying to keep it on track and try and turn it into something. um and I feel like I forget which side of the brain does what, but I feel like it's not a bad analogy for like I'm one part of the brain. I'm like the editor, I'm the person that's like more cerebral when I'm working with other people, and I live more in this world. Then when it's the money war, it's like I have to switch gears a little bit and just kind of muck around with stuff that could be nothing for ages, and then there might be one idea that's cool and pluck that. Um, they're both valuable to me. When I do too much of the other one, where it's like very brainy and kind of, um, I guess, rational and logical, I feel like I need more true creativity, and that's kind of the mode. That's usually when the money war kind of emerges with new songs. It's like kind of done too much of that, so it's like let's do something that's the opposite, and vice versa. Like living in the artist mode feels like it doesn't have any structure, like it's all free flowing or something like that. And it's nice to produce for other people where you feel like there's, all right, at the end of today, that we're going to get a song and we're going to finish one. Even like when it's yourself, it's easy to just like float around in no man's land.
No, that makes complete sense as well. Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad it makes sense.
That makes sense. And I feel like you've got that balance as well. It sounds like you're spreading yourself into different areas. You're not like focusing solely on the money wall or focusing solely on other people's projects. You've got that balance that works for you and yeah, your life.
Yeah, yeah, cool. I like doing both. I know some people like specializing in one thing, um, but I feel like the doing both of that, it kind of gives some structure whilst exploring creativity freely at the same time.
Yeah, and I guess it's always great to have too, because as you would have known yourself from like COVID, when you can't like do live shows and stuff like that, you're still able to work with other people and still be creative without having to rely on having to perform live with your music. Yeah.
For sure.
And you mentioned like tours before, like, do you guys still perform live, or how can people come support you if they like you and what you're putting out there?
Yeah, well, we haven't played like live in quite a while, so we now have a 2.5 year old and twins as well, so we have 3 kids. So just logistically, it's been like impossible. We were going to do some shows at the end of last year, and it was just too hard to even rehearse and stuff. So um, there's no real plan to play live for the next little bit. I'm sure we will at some point. Like I do miss being on stage and just generally like having that feedback and interaction with an audience and also with the other band members. Um, but yeah, life is tricky that way. But the Money War started as like a studio project, and um, I'm okay with it being that for as long as it needs to be. And then when we feel like it's doable to play live again, we will.
Exactly. And there's no pressure. As long as you guys are having fun and you're enjoying what goes into the work, I guess, quality is always better than quantity and how much you're putting out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd love to. It feels a little like weird to be making music and putting it out, and then not like the obvious way to promote music is play live and all that. So we don't have that side to things, but um, also totally fine with just sharing music and people finding it however they find it.
Yeah, and I guess that's a great thing with this day and age too. Like people put their music on like TikTok, Spotify. You don't always have to rely on people coming to shows. People can still enjoy the music,
Yeah,
without having to physically go see you guys live if you're not touring or performing.
yeah, exactly.
So I guess like what's on your radar for the rest of the year? Are you guys doing some more writing, or you guys taking a break, or like what's 2023 look like for you?
Yeah, so we've got we've got an EP that we're working on that will definitely, well, should definitely, maybe definitely come out this year. Um, and that's the main focus for the Money War. Yeah, always kind of working on other collaborations as well. But yeah, the EP for the Money War. Like we've done 2 full-length albums. I'm intrigued. What's your opinion about EPs versus album versus singles? Do you listen to albums still?
I still do, yeah. I like to especially now, like I've seen a few more people do like interludes in between songs on albums now. So when I see that, it makes me listen to the whole like album in order when like it follows
Yeah,
through. But I
yeah,
guess from my friends who don't do that, I think they prefer EPs because they just add it to their playlist, put it on shuffle, like it goes with all their other music.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I guess it's changed a bit in the days of like people listening to a full album where people just shuffle it now or pick certain songs. But I personally prefer to listen to things in order if a longer piece of work goes out.
Yeah, that was the way that I like really got into music, was listening to albums and knowing like track 3 was the best and 9 was the best and skip this one, and I loved that. But yeah, I guess from an it's super boring to talk about but from an economical point of view, it probably makes sense for the majority of artists to put out songs at a time, because we're in an industry that only really can focus on one song at a time. So for the most part, which kind of suits us because we've got 3 kids and it's hard at the minute. So we'll use that as the excuse.
Exactly. How do you find that balance, like having kids, but also like, working with your partner and trying to be creative as well?
Yeah, it's really hard. It is. Yeah, not gonna lie. The we started the money when we started the money we didn't have kids, and that was a lot easier because it was just like, hey, what do you think of this? Let's record it, see what happens. Now it has to be very structured and kind of book in times to like do things. Um,
You just have to train the
which,
kids up, get them in the bands, they can contribute. I mean, they've got
yeah,
music programs, right? Surely it's in their blood somewhere.
that's actually the reason we had kids was just so we didn't have to pay other musicians to do
Exactly.
anything.
Get a drummer in, get a guitar.
That's it. And they won't. They will be grounded until they can play all their instruments. Good enough
Exactly.
puns.
Yes. Cool. Yeah, was there anything else you want to add about, I guess, the release or about your project that we haven't covered today and you want people to know about you guys or this particular release from last week?
I don't think so. I think like yeah, if you check out like our social media and stuff and Spotify and um follow us on there if you want to keep up to date with what we're up to. Um, yeah, just want to give another shout out to James, who is Fields, who's the other artist that we collaborated with on Was It Ever Really Anything, who co-wrote the track and co-produced it, and I think the flavor of the two, Carmen and myself and James, was like a pretty cool combination. So
Yeah, I think like all the flavors work together really well. And even knowing before when you said originally like Carmen, like that vocal wasn't meant to be on there, and then she's added that in, that's all flowing together really nice as well.
yeah, I'm glad that it feels seamless. Yeah, it felt like that making it, which is great that it comes across like that.
And it's great that it felt like that while making it too, because sometimes the final product can sound seamless, but then obviously for the people that put in the hard work, it's like can be a long process on your end for the people actually making it.
It pretty much is always like that for us. Like it's a long period of like trying to maybe now because we have less time to like dwell on it, there's not really enough time to like overthink it.
Yeah.
It kind of just was like instinctual decisions. And but yeah, I'm glad you like the song. That's cool.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was nice to hear more about the release and about the money war as well. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. Oh,
All right, I look forward to
see you around.
what you guys do next. Cool.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
See you around.
See ya.
Bye. Bye.